Hey there, welcome to the Mental Perk podcast. I'm Karla, licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Brandi, entrepreneur, author, and community leader. And we're here to talk about
real people, real issues, and real talk. Well, welcome back to the Mental Perk. We're so excited today to have Dr. Wells Housson. She is a board-certified clinical psychologist and owner of Housson Women's Health. She does therapy and all kinds of work with women of all different issues, from depression, anxiety, to postpartum, to infertility. She assists her clients with maybe life transitions, empty nesting, or even just making friends as an adult, right? So we are so excited to welcome her and get her field of knowledge, and here we go.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Yes, we're so excited.
Well, welcome. Well, tell us how you got started in what you do.
So, how I got started in psychology, I actually majored in Spanish undergrad, and then I taught high school Spanish for a couple of years, and I found that the part of teaching, I taught at all-girls high school in Dallas, and I found that the part of teaching that was the most interesting for me was my relationship with the girls. Like, I loved working with adolescent girls, and kind of, they bring so much levity to a situation, but also they're just funny. But also, like, helping them navigate that phase of life where they're, like, in between childhood and adulthood, and really, like, establishing their identity and figuring out who they are. And so I decided to kind of change paths, got a job doing psych research at UT Southwestern, applied to grad school there, and so 3 years after I finished my undergrad, started there. So, which is a great lesson for anyone in undergrad. It really doesn't matter what your major is. You can switch.
You could always switch. Yeah. Yes. It happens so often.
Just get good grades. And then you can, like, really do anything. And honestly, I think Southwestern loved that I had a liberal arts background and spoke Spanish.
Oh, I can see why that would be so helpful. I mean, I worked at Children's, and I'm telling you,
that's
so,
right.
You know, being
I
able
worked
to
at Children's too.
Did you?
I did.
Awesome. Were you in the
inpatient?
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's what I did my dissertation up there. So did graduate school, had 2 babies while I was in grad school, finished, did a postdoc in forensic work, and then took a little bit of time, got licensed, eventually had 2 more babies.
Oh my goodness. You're a busy mama doctor person.
So the 2 babies in grad school was probably not something I would recommend repeating, but we made it work and it was great. I'm married to a psychologist, and I think it helped. He'd gone through the same program I went through. And
so he kind of knew.
He knew exactly what he was getting into, and was very encouraging of my finishing, and I had a lot of family support. So I started my career wanting to do forensic work, and then sort of shifted into doing more testing and therapy with adolescents, and even like some younger school-age children. But as I started to get older and felt like my children needed me more, it was hard to do that work. It was hard to go home and be with my school-age children and also be at work trying to address my patients' needs and working with their parents. And I also found, like, one of my favorite seasons in life was, you know, being pregnant and having infants. It was also the hardest thing I ever did.
Yes.
But I really loved it. And so because of sort of my passion around that, and knowing so many women just in my life as friends that had had fertility struggles and had had losses, and the way it really wasn't talked about, kind of drove my passion into that field. Or more focusing in that sort of phase of life. Because, you know, once you've had a loss or a miscarriage and you tell someone, it's like, oh my gosh, I did too. You know, and all these
opens
people,
that door.
Start coming out of the woodwork. And I think we don't talk about it enough, which creates kind of this air of, like, stigma or shame around it. Because we all sort of keep it secret. And I think one of the reasons people don't talk about it is because you don't want to make the other person uncomfortable.
Right.
Or you're uncomfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
Sure. So it's just, it is a topic that, you know, once someone tells you that, you're kind of like, oh, what do I say next?
Yes. Yeah. Right. And I think the other person is like, well, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But I always tell people that's because there isn't anything to say.
Right.
You just say, I'm so sorry. I bet that was really hard.
Yeah.
I don't really, because there's nothing anyone can say to make it feel better. and just kind of validate that must have been really hard if
And
you didn't have a loss yourself.
I think that's so important just for women to feel validated, to feel like, oh,
I really think that's what we all want, don't
yeah,
you?
100%. I mean,
Like when you call your friends to like vent about something, you don't really want advice.
no. And how many of us have trained our husbands to quit giving us advice? Yeah, just listen. Just listen. I'll figure it out. I just need you to listen.
When I tell moms of teenagers, and I've done this myself, like, start a conversation with them like, okay, do you want me to just listen right now? Or do you want me to give suggestions? Like, do you want my help with this situation, or do you just want me to listen?
See, I think everybody should be married to a therapist because she sounds a lot like Jeff.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
100%
Jeff
sounds
kinda
like
schooled
Jeff.
me on this.
Yeah.
Of course, after the fact, right?
Well, he told me to tell you guys that he wants us to do an episode together.
Oh,
Oh,
let's do
we
it.
would love that.
Let's do that, for
100%. We
sure.
got a 4-chair there.
Yeah.
We got it.
Yeah.
We got it.
Yeah,
We're
well,
ready.
We got this
yeah,
covered.
no, that would be fun because
It
Jeff
would
was
be
like,
great.
the same thing. I'd be like, I'd want to know.
Yeah.
Well, why do you feel this way? And Jeff looking at us, that's really selfish, Brandi. I'm like,
I always say, "Are you sure you want to hear it?" I'm always
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
especially with my
No,
daughter.
but a lot of times if they ask for it, they are open to it.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
well, what should I do? And then you can make suggestions kind of from there.
yeah.
But yeah, I think like just kind of setting the expectation before you even start is a good place to be.
So, what do you think you see the most of? And women, I feel like we're finally getting more of a voice when it comes to our own mental health and our physical health. And I just feel like, we need to open this door to women having more conversations because
Yeah.
there's so many more changes our bodies and minds go through than I would say men. And whether it's,
yeah.
For sure.
and I feel like we need to give credit to that. And so I don't think women have talked about issues enough to be able to help people feel like, oh, I'm not alone in this.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So what kind of issues do you feel like your office sees?
A lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
A lot of anxiety. Some depression, but I would say definitely more anxiety than depression. A lot of just managing like all of the things and this feeling of kind of being trapped in this season of life where the things I'm doing have to be done, but don't feel that fulfilling to me and don't feel that meaningful. And, I set aside this career and I don't regret it. I've been raising my children, but now they're adolescents. They don't really need me much anymore. My parents are getting older, between like driving them to doctor's appointments and picking up kids from activities. And it's a lot and it's sort of thankless.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't get out of those things, right? Like we have obligations, but adding in something that is for you, whether it's monetized or not, it doesn't have to be a job, but finding something that fulfills you, that gives you joy, that adds some meaning so you don't feel like at the end of the day, you just tally up the list of all the things you did for all the people.
Well, and it's true because I remember my therapist asking me one time, Brandi, what makes you happy? And I'm like, well, doing things for my kids.
Yeah.
And she's like, no.
Mm-hmm.
That's the walk you do every day in life.
Yeah.
What makes you happy? And everything you're just saying is everything that someone does for someone else,
Yeah.
but they don't do it for themselves. And I think
Right.
we forget
No, totally.
how to do something
Yeah.
for ourselves, right?
Well, and I sometimes will tell women who get stuck on that question, like, okay, go back to what you, like, if you had a free day when you were a kid or even a teenager, like, what would you do? Like, go back to almost like a play-based mentality of things that you did just for the sake of doing them. Not because it was going to, like, get you a better grade on a test or, like, readings to increase your vocabulary for your SAT score. Like, pick something that you do just because you really like to do it and start there. So, like,
It's a really good idea.
It is a great
I
idea.
mean, maybe you're not going to sit there and play with Play-Doh, but maybe you're like,
I
oh, I
would.
really like. I honestly kind of love it.
I
do
love the
too. It's
smell.
Me too.
Okay,
It
y'all.
smells so good. But
Did y'all
then
sniff glue too?
start to have like a little bit of a breakdown when they're mixing the colors. But anyway, but maybe
So
that
cool,
means
though.
like, okay, so maybe I'm not going to play with Play-Doh. I mean, you and I would, but maybe I want to create more with my hands,
Yeah.
or maybe I want to cook in a more creative way versus just in a very serviceable way
Yeah.
for dinner, or maybe I want to take a little class in flower arranging. I mean, I don't know. It's however it looks.
Yeah.
Like one of my big de-stressors, this is going to make me sound like really super cool, but is puzzles. Like I love
Well, I
jigsaw.
love puzzles, though.
Love a
I
puzzle.
love the complicated ones.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, the
me
more
too.
complicated, the
Thousands
better.
of pieces.
Yes,
It just makes
yes.
it
Yeah.
mind to think. You're still, but you're thinking, Yeah, I think that's a great
I
one.
would love it. And
Yeah.
you can listen to a podcast.
Yep.
You can have maybe an episode of Dateline on, whatever.
Yeah.
you're
You could
kind
drink
of
a martini while you're
you
doing
could
it.
drink a martini.
Of course you
Yeah,
could.
of course you could. Your anxiety is going to be worse the next day. But I mean, like,
Do you find that?
to each her own.
I think I've adjusted to that
she
symptom
has.
somehow along the way, but yeah,
You
definitely.
know, and it's funny. People respond to alcohol really differently, but go look at my Instagram reels. Like I'm sort of a buzzkill, like literally about it.
About
Because-
alcohol?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I just think, like we were saying, in terms of like aging and hormone changes, and it becomes harder and harder to process for some women, not for
100%.
everyone.
No, 100%. I would say that's
if
true.
you can like very mindfully and very intentionally have a cocktail because you really enjoy it and you make that decision with intent, that's fine. But if you're drinking habitually every night and you're waking up feeling worse and you're kind of having the
Yes.
scaries and the anxiety is really bad and you're spinning and you have like that cotton mouth, that's probably something you need to look at. You know
I
what
agree.
mean?
I think you described that perfectly. Yes.
Because I'm not saying eliminate alcohol altogether. I do say for some women, like, use what I call like the birthday cake method. Birthday cake is something you wouldn't eat every
Yep.
night.
Oh, that would be terrible. Yeah.
My friend Jeff was like, wait, why not?
Oh, he loves
course.
cake. And please remind me
But
to
he
tell
loves
you
more
his
martini.
cake story from
Okay, I
high
will.
school.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, he
Like,
does love his
it's like
martini.
there was the yearbook came out and his brother was in all these pictures and the only one of him was him sitting on the floor eating cake. Funniest thing
No.
ever. Yes, ask him about this.
Oh
and
my
I just told it to
gosh.
the whole world, but it's so funny.
I'm so happy.
Jeff.
But anyway, like we wouldn't eat birthday cake every night, but if we're going out to celebrate something special, like a birthday or an
Yep.
anniversary, we do. And sometimes at home you have a treat, right? But it's not something you do every night. It's not something you do
Right.
just because it's 5, right?
Yes.
So kind of treat it more like that as a celebratory or special thing. And I think that's a good way of kind of conceptualizing it.
And I think that's a good way of thinking because like when you're young, you can drink a lot more and it probably won't affect you as bad, although it can. But
It can, yeah.
But I think that as we're talking about changes in life, you're seeing that it
I
does
just,
catch
I
up
don't-
with you.
I think certain people
Yeah.
can drink and they're fine. Like
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
me, I just usually don't like the taste of alcohol.
I don't either.
It just doesn't do very much.
Well, I
for
can't
me.
say that, but
Well,
yeah.
but everybody's
Yeah,
different though,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah, everyone's different.
Yeah.
And it's not like I quit drinking in 2020, kind of during the pandemic as everyone was starting to drink more. And that's not really why. And I didn't stop because I had to, but I just felt bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Alcohol for me, like the way my brain is wired, is not very reinforcing in the moment.
Yeah.
And then I feel so bad
The
for the
next
next
day.
day or two.
yeah.
Like the recovery was getting longer and longer the older I got. And
It's
I
like
was
not
like,
worth it.
No.
Yeah.
Like I was 45 in the pandemic. I'll be 50 in January. And I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to do this. And I think a lot of times, especially younger women, do it so they still get invited to mom's nights. So they still get invited to the party. Like, well, am I going to get invited to like the mom's happy hours if I don't drink?
Well, you're friends with the wrong
They have
people.
the
if
best-
that's what you're worried about.
But
It's
mocktails.
so
There's a
much-
thing about mocktails. You can have a mocktail.
Totally. And I said, think about it this way too. Like, alcohol is the only drug that we have to explain when we don't do it. Like, people will ask you, like, oh my gosh, why aren't you drinking?
Yeah,
Like,
right. No, they do.
if
Like, because I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you're young, the pressure's there. It's like you just give in.
Totally. And then
100%.
everyone's going to think I'm pregnant, or like I'm too old for anyone to think I'm pregnant, thank goodness. But, I think there's like this pressure of I want to be like in the group. I want to be included, and I want to be like, I don't want to be considered like a dud. And I think sometimes it just takes one person to be like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to drink tonight. My baby gets up early, or I want to run in the morning, or whatever your reason is, to give someone else permission to be like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to drink either.
Or you just sit back and say, I want to be sober because I want to make fun of every one of y'all once you get drunk.
Yes,
It's so
yes.
entertaining.
I actually want to win this game of Mahjong.
Yes.
I'm not going to drink.
I go to
all of
Bunko.
you.
Y'all go to Drunko. It's
Yes.
different, right?
Yes.
Drunk. Seriously,
No,
they
for
do.
sure,
It's
yeah.
called in our
Yeah.
group. It was called Drunko because
I
they
know so many groups that call it drunk.
Yeah, it's not even. But I want to go back to something you said that was really important. You're talking about just the the way everything's processed. And I want to talk to you, and I just went blank. I just totally went blank on what
Did
we're
you,
saying.
do you need me
You're gonna have
to?
to cut that out. Go ahead.
Okay,
Jump in.
you want me to jump in?
Yeah, I do.
I do think there's a misconception though about if I drink, I have to get drunk.
No,
You don't have
sure
to get
true.
drunk,
That's true.
right?
That's
And
true.
I think that people need to understand.
I say that to my adolescent and college patients all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you can stop.
Yeah,
You do
absolutely.
not have to get blackout.
No.
You don't have to get hammered. And it can still be fun. And why don't you try layering it with water and you might feel better.
That's it. That's a
I'm
big
all
thing
about the
right there.
spacer. I
Drink
preach the
water.
spacer
Drink
to my
water.
college kids. It's like
all about the spacer.
It's all about the spacer.
Okay,
So,
I know what I was going to ask
okay,
her.
let's
the
go for it.
question is you're talking about women and, mamas
Yes.
wanting to spend, focus on something for you, do something.
Yes.
I know you get this sometimes. Well, you feel guilty.
Yeah.
Mom's like, well, I got to do A, B, and C, and I
Yeah.
just don't have time.
Yeah.
How do you walk them through? Look, you find the time
Well, okay.
and not feel guilty about it.
This is kind of like unpopular opinion thing that I say. And I don't think that our children always have to be our very first priority. I think at times we need to prioritize and focus on our children, especially if something's going on. But you do have to prioritize yourself and your primary relationship or your marriage.
You're preaching what I preach every single day. The moment the kids become the priority, the relationship goes down.
It can, for sure.
Yeah.
And not to the exclusion of meeting their needs, obviously, but I think if you're not caring for yourself and you're not giving attention to your relationship, ultimately that will be bad for them.
100%.
Your kids are going to be okay if you're okay.
But it also teaches them a lot of life lessons
Yes, it
when they don't get everything they want. They're not always immediate responses,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Little ones, they can manipulate anything. So if they
Yeah.
see they're getting all the attention, they're going to work it. And sometimes they'll play you against the other parent.
yeah.
It becomes, so I think it's such a,
Well, not just little ones, like adolescents
Yes.
are notorious.
yeah.
I mean, they really are good at that. But I think it's also like one of the most important things we do as a parent is build in frustration tolerance, right? So like not meeting every need as they have it. And even as infants, like you have to meet it more quickly, but you are slowly kind of building some frustration
Yes.
tolerance. So they do learn how to self-soothe. So they do learn how to tolerate like not getting their need met instantaneously. And obviously, as they get older, that space can get a little bit wider. But that's how you grow resilient kids.
I'm
They
working
have
with
to
my
have a
parents.
shell.
100%. I'm working with my parents to understand your kids can be bored. It is okay.
Yes.
It's
Oh my
so good for them.
gosh.
That's where creativity takes
too.
place.
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we were so bored growing
Oh,
up.
but
we
we
had,
found ways to
4
entertain
channels to
ourselves.
watch.
Yes. And sometimes you'd have to move the antenna to get one. And, like they don't even understand
We're so aging ourselves.
the
I know.
joy of the TV guide and like going
Yes.
through and be like, oh, that's a rerun this week because it had the little R
Yep.
next to it.
Yeah.
Everything's
And the
instant.
running to the bathroom for during the commercial when the Wizard
100%.
of Oz was on once
Yeah.
a year. Yeah.
They have no idea. Our
100%.
stresses were
No idea.
different.
They
back
were.
Then. They were
But
way
just
different.
being able to train parents to understand it's okay for your child to be angry. It's okay for your child to be frustrated. We don't have to fix all their problems. We don't.
Well, I was one of those that try to fix it,
Yeah.
and I was
Well, I
told
think as
you're being
women-
selfish.
I mean, that goes back to like the giving advice, right? Like, I think as women, we have in our nature, and maybe it's kind of like socialized in us, but I think we have in our nature to fix things,
We do.
especially for the people we love. And when they're little, it's so easy to fix. Like, oh, you didn't want the red sippy cup? I'll go get the blue one. Or you didn't want goldfish? Hold on, I'll give you pirate speed. You know, you wanted it in a Ziploc bag, not in the bowl. You know, whatever. Like, we can fix that. We can put a battery in the toy. But as they get older and older, it's harder and harder to fix them. And it's also not really the best for them
Yeah.
when we do.
You're enabling them, I think, aren't you? Because they become, and then so when you make that transition from, let's say, high school to college,
Right.
these kids don't know what to do.
No. I mean, some of them really don't.
Thus the increase in anxiety and depression.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely contributes to it. And I think, there's times where you're like, okay, as a parent, I have to intervene. Like, this has gone too far. If it's like a bullying or, something happening on social media. But just the kind of day-to-day stuff, as much as you can sort of let them handle it, and they're going to screw up, like, absolutely. But they have to learn how to sort of tolerate that and manage that and then fix it on their own. Because when you do it for them, you're also kind of unintentionally giving them this message of like, oh, I don't think you can handle this at all. So like I have to jump in. And it really decreases their sense of self-efficacy, like as it would, right? Like they're like, oh, my parents must think I have no idea how to do this because they're going to have to do it for me.
It's a very good point. She does sound like a lot like Jeff.
She even does the likes. Like, that. Like, I don't know, right? Jeff,
I'm not even from Nebraska. I'm from Dallas,
You're not from the
Texas.
cornfields?
I'm not. I'm actually
cornfields in Nebraska? What is it?
It's
Yeah,
cornfields,
cornfields, yeah.
100%.
No, I'm locally grown. Yeah.
Yeah, locally grown. I love
Me
it.
too.
You from Dallas?
Yes.
Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah,
So,
love it here.
you know, we started to get on this, parenting, which I think is so important. And I think it could even have a whole session on its own, maybe the one
Yeah.
with you and Jeff, just a whole
For sure.
session on parenting.
Yeah.
Because no kid comes with a manual. And I think that as parents, we get all these confusing messages. And I think social media, oh, well, we're not doing what they're doing. So obviously we're doing something wrong, but I think you have to go with your gut feel on a lot of stuff. And you have to get out of
Well,
rescuing.
what you do with one child, you're not going to do with the other
Well,
child.
each child is
It's so
different.
different, you
Every
know,
child
and
is different.
They are so different, but I think a lot of parents, that's what they try to do. Let's say your first child ends up being this perfect child, which I think a lot of the first children they're very, I mean, from what I've seen, my own experience, they're very, they're cautious. They don't, and maybe it's because when you have
followers.
rule follow. That's exactly what they are. Second child, different ball game.
Yeah.
You can't, parent them the same.
No. We have 4 children and they're all wonderful humans. They could not be more different.
Yes.
Like they have the same basic DNA and they have been raised in the same house. I mean, my oldest and my youngest are almost 9 years apart. And so I was a different parent 9 years later.
Yep.
Than I was when I had my
100%.
first, for better or for worse, just different. I did less of the I made the costume by hand and made the cake by hand, but that was like me overcoming my guilt for being a grad student
But there's good bakeries out there. Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, actually,
In fact, I prefer that.
I would take a Costco cake over almost anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's true. And I was going to say something. Oh well, I mean, go on.
I don't know what else I was going to
No,
say.
wait, I know you were saying something. I was going to say.
How different the children were from parents and parenting.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for saying that. So I tell new moms all the time, when I had children and, my first is 23, my oldest is 23, and I've heard my parents and their friends say, they don't come with like you said, they don't come with a manual, right? There's no guidebook. And yes, that was true for us. And in a sense, that was honestly beautiful for us because now I think new moms, they don't come with an instruction manual, but they come with the internet.
Everyone's opinion. They come with
Yes.
everyone's opinion.
Yes. They come with endless different opinions and sources on Instagram and on TikTok and on just the interwebs, just getting on the internet and doing some deep dive on well, I thought my baby had colic, but turns out she may have a brain tumor. You know what I mean? You can really go deep. And I've noticed, I've had to tell a lot of new moms or pregnant moms to get off of TikTok.
Yes.
Because the algorithm is really good. And so I think if you're shopping for diapers and buying some newborn stuff, you start getting fed a lot on TikTok. And then suddenly you're getting fed stuff on SIDS and stuff on stillbirth and
Stuff that'll freak you out.
And building on that anxiety
Absolutely.
we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Exactly.
And watching TikTok after TikTok of women who have lost a baby to sudden infant death syndrome is not helping you
No.
prevent it. I mean, you can know the risk factors and it's, usually family history, but it's contributing to your anxiety and it is going to make your postpartum anxiety so much worse too. So just there's absolutely nothing helpful or productive that comes out of that. And then you'll hear one nurse that says that your 6-day-old baby needs to be on this very rigid schedule and another one that says feed on demand, another one that's, there are so many opinions and you need to kind of shut out the chatter and go back to sort of grassroots like our parents did and call your mom or call your aunt that you trust or call your older sister.
Do what works.
Call your neighbor.
Yeah.
Go back to sort of having a community around us and back to reaching out to our village instead of trusting a stranger on the internet you've never met.
100%.
Or just watch your baby and figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
Exactly. And realize that I'm going to rock this baby because I haven't had sleep for 3 days and it works.
Well,
I'm going to
and
let
for
them have a
sure.
pacifier because it works.
Well, it goes back to what you're saying. All these people now that are doing this TikTok and looking at all this stuff, you're finding some of these famous people 5 years down the road are being convicted for child neglect. I mean, so it's like,
well, there is Ruby Frankie.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So, people were engaged in and following all this stuff, and it goes back to what you said.
Yeah.
Call someone you know.
Yeah, for
Don't live in someone else's social
we
media
weren't
trends.
meant to raise babies and care for our families in isolation. Like, we weren't meant to do this in a vacuum. We were really meant to do it in a community. And I saw this really interesting article in The Atlantic about how, like, the death of the teenage babysitter, because teenage girls don't really babysit much anymore.
That is so true. I'm so glad you brought that up. I have a teen girl. Like, these girls don't babysit anymore. We were babysitting at 13 years old.
I think, well, some of them I think are doing things like little internships and things like that, which I don't see, like, I mean, maybe they're super valuable depending on what your child wants to do, but I think going in and taking care of your neighbor's baby and, making $7 an hour, or I made $2 when I started. I mean, now I guess you probably make like 14 or 15, even for an adolescent babysitter. But I think there's value in that. Like, I think there's value in, like, kind of learning how to do some of those things and, putting the dishes away and picking up toys. Like, it's
teaches responsibility.
Here's what I would tell my girls, that my girls would babysit, and I'm like, this is a form of birth control.
It is very true.
It shows them with each child's different.
Yeah.
Each struggle. I mean, my youngest one was a really good, because she was with that child so much, she was able to help the mom, encourage the mom. She didn't know. Since she's with the kid so much, she noticed that the kid had sensory issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she ended up being diagnosed with a high
functioning autistic spectrum disorder or something.
All of that.
ASD.
Yeah, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But, it was because she paid attention, and the next child she babysat was totally different. So but that was my joke. This is birth control.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. I think the other reason that there's a lot of moms, like, we kind of mom at this level of, like, a varsity sport, right? Like, we're all trying to letter in it, especially the younger moms. And I think there's some fear around leaving your baby with a teenager or, like, a young person. And I had found, and it was actually a really dear friend of mine she hired my girls to babysit when they were like 10 and 12. And she had an infant at the time and a toddler. And I was like, are you sure they're old enough to do this? Like, and she said, yeah, you know what? So our society has survived because of teenage babysitters. Like, we wouldn't have survived, if teenage babysitters killed babies. But she said, honestly, I think you're better off with a younger babysitter. They don't have a phone. They don't really have boyfriends or anything like that yet. They're not as distracted, and they still like to play. And they're also, because they are younger, I think they take it more seriously. Like, they're a little more anxious, so they're watching really carefully to make sure, like, no one swallows a Lego or.
Oh, that's so true.
And it's
that is true.
Yeah, but I hadn't thought about it that way, but she's absolutely right.
And she is, and you go back to community. So when I babysat and I came across a problem I didn't know how to solve, I just called mom.
Yeah.
And she would say,
100%.
well, do this, this, and this. Yeah.
Now they're Googling stuff that's not
I
even
know.
real.
I know.
And
I know. Yeah.
I can't tell you that,
That's a
several
very good
times my
point.
mom would she'd drive over or she'd walk over and help me fix something or whatever. But yeah.
Or, like, rely on your friends. I think women are so hesitant to ask for help and to ask our friends for help because we've already made a decision of, like, oh, I don't want to burden her. I don't want to make her feel obligated to say yes. And, like, it kind of gets into this people pleasing of you've already made a decision for that person without even consulting them that they don't want to help you. When really, I think most of us like to be asked for
If you
help.
can't burden your friend, who can you burden, right?
Yeah, no, for
That's,
sure.
I mean, and that part of being a friend is being there through good and bad, right? So
And I just think it's,
Don't call me Karla, okay?
I will do that. I will call you.
But I think it, like, my friends are always like, oh, okay, what do I owe you? And I'm like, oh my gosh,
know.
nothing. I would have given
a
you way
friendship.
better advice if you were in my office. This is me, like, barely listening for free. But no, I mean, I'm teasing. But I do, like, back to friendship. And I think I told you guys I was supposed to do a talk on friendship and I had to cancel. My dad got sick. But friendship is so important.
It is.
And adult friendships are really hard. And
They
making
are.
new friends as an adult is really awkward. Like, it's as awkward as being a sixth grader.
There's a lot of history there.
For sure. And, like, making a new friend as an adult, like, feels like, will she think it's weird if I text her and, like, ask her to go do something? Or, like, what if I say, let's go have lunch, and then we sit there and, like, there's nothing to talk about? So I often say, well, start with, like, hey, I don't know if you like to walk, but I usually go on a walk in the morning. Like, do you want to meet at like the Katy Trail and go for a walk? Or do you want to meet at the North Haven Trail? And I think that way too, if the person says no, it feels less like, oh, she didn't like me. Because it's not about just sitting and talking to you, but it's like,
I just
oh,
can't.
you know what, I have to get to work, or like, you know.
No, I think that's a really great point. And I mean, I have multiple, especially I've been doing more EAP clients. And so I have, women who are recently divorced, have moved to a new place, and they're, isolated and struggling alone, and they don't know how to make friends because it's not easy.
It's not easy.
And so it's like, but that's what's contributing to the depression. And so it's like, what can we do? And so one of the things is that we
tell ourselves these lies and like look on social media of like, well, they already have their friends. Like,
Yes.
look, they're on this girls' trip, or they're all at this dinner together, or like everyone's going to more parties. Well, I mean, if you feel like everyone's going to more parties than you are, then have a party.
Exactly. Create your own party and invite your friends. That's
You do.
exactly right.
And even if you're introverted, still have a party, just a smaller one, and make everyone leave at 9. Like, whatever. Like,
I love that.
whatever works well for you. But I think the reality is we can't have a really happy, fulfilling life without friends. I think friendship is so critical. And I think women thrive on friendship. And while we tend to be really good friends and good at it, it can also be really hard, especially during different life transitions. Like, if you're divorcing and all of your friends are couples,
It's so hard.
it's so
you have
hard.
to start all over, basically.
It's very awkward.
Yeah.
It totally is. But I think most of your girlfriends would be happy to go do something with you on a night where their husbands have something, or just tell their husbands like, hey, you got the night off.
Yeah.
But you have to put yourself out there, and it feels awkward and it feels weird. And it's so easy to make these excuses of like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, I'm just worn out by the weekend, or like, I'm an introvert. I never want to do anything. I'd rather stay home. And like, honestly, me too, kind of. I mean, same, but you're really not too tired to have friends. And if you're an introvert, like I said, that you still need friends. Your group may be smaller and you may need more time alone, but just because you need time alone and are an introvert doesn't mean you don't need friends too.
100%. And I think, the misconception is that introverts like to be by themselves all the time, but many of them are unhappy being by themselves all the time.
Yeah.
They're just uncomfortable in social situations, but it doesn't mean they like
And
being
that's
alone.
where you change the social situation to where they're comfortable, like you said. And if they're your friends, most 9 times out of 10, they're going to share something in common with you anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
So they might. I'm like, I like to be at home a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I don't like to be out and doing a lot of things. I would rather be home. I'm not going to go to a big social event. I'd rather stay at home, watch it on TV.
Yeah.
So there are people out there that align with you.
Yeah.
Birthday's coming up and everybody's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to watch the Mike Tyson fight this weekend.
Yeah.
So
when's your birthday?
it's the 15th.
And you want to watch Mike Tyson?
I do.
Oh,
It's on a Friday.
It is. I just want to stay
I
at
have a
home.
basketball tournament that day.
Yeah, I just want to watch. I want to watch the fight.
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
she does like to box.
That's what I'm saying,
She
though.
she likes to box.
I love boxing.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it too is just like you said, don't feel the pressure of feeling like you got to go do something because you're serving someone else.
Right.
You want to do something to have them come to your house and watch the fight.
Yeah,
like you
for
don't have
sure.
to, so
But
I
you
think
have
that's
to be
the
an
biggest-
active participant in it.
You
You
do.
can't sit and wait for everyone to come to you.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we do.
Yeah, we all
And
do.
we have to realize that these phones and all of this causes everyone to get in their own little bubble. Now, go to a nice restaurant and look at how many people are on dates or with their family,
They're on
and
the phone.
everyone's on their phone.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not
the
good.
worst.
You're supposed to interact with people,
World
right?
we're living in.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, and I've told people before, like, imagine if we were sitting here and I like picked up a book and did this and just started reading it or the newspaper. Like, you would be like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with her.
She's
Or
so
she's
rude.
We actually should do that.
I've
Like,
done it before to prove a point, just to kind of be funny. But like, people would think I
I
had a
love it.
social disorder.
Yes.
Or I was just unbelievably rude. But you're doing the same thing with your phone.
Yeah.
It's just socially acceptable. And people kind of act like, well, I can be looking at my phone and still talking to you. Well, you can, but you're not paying attention.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you're just,
I mean, just even like going into a public place like a mall or wherever, people are walking on their phones and they're literally walking into you. And they don't even like say, I'm sorry. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just like
how rude do you not pay attention? I'm on my phone.
exactly. It's like it's your fault that you ran into them.
Yeah, right. Like, can you not see that I'm like scrolling
On my phone.
Yeah, like I'm looking for the viral nutcracker on TikTok right now. Can you not see that? Like, which I actually went to home kids before I came here to look for the viral nutcracker on
Is
TikTok.
there a
but
viral?
There is.
Nutcracker?
I don't even know what this
He's
is.
like 4 feet tall and wicker, like a natural rattan.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna Google this.
I want
I
one
know.
now.
Well, you know what, ladies? He's sold out everywhere.
He
Sure.
is?
Well, I mean, I couldn't find
Did you
him
look on
anywhere.
Amazon?
Yeah, no, he's not there.
He's not there.
No, he's the Home Goods. He's
That,
the
well,
Home
that's
Goods
almost like the
item.
coffee mug we try to find
Oh,
at
yeah.
Home Goods.
Yes. See,
Well,
Home
coffee
Goods,
mug-
It
It
looked
was like-
just like a coffee cup, but
but it was a
about this
table
size. It was
like
a
that.
table,
And it had
was a
kind of that.
latte.
Yeah.
And I went everywhere. I went
Yeah.
to every Home Goods, and I
I
was like, "This
know.
is ridiculous."
There's something,
I
I
know.
think that's a scheme that they're trying to get us into Home Goods. So we'll buy
Probably.
something else by showing us
Oh.
something we can't have.
Yeah,
I walked out empty-handed. I was really proud of myself.
Because
I did.
So
I would have
you
to, I'd have
defeated
to
the
leave with
urge.
something.
Yeah, well, the line was really long, and I wanted
That
to
would
be
have
on
done it to
time,
me.
so-
I've been yes. Yeah.
So that saved me. I was like, well, I think I could cut it close if they have the Nutcracker, but they didn't, so I just left. But no, you're right. I mean, once the TikTok girls get a hold of it, it's over.
It is
It's
nuts.
over. They buy
It
it.
is.
Everybody buys it in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know how we digress to that point.
Because we're women
Yeah.
and we can.
Yes, and sometimes my brain goes in a lot of different directions. Yeah, it's funny. All the women kind of my age who get diagnosed with ADHD after their kids do, like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh, I for sure think I've got something going on.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
is that getting older, you think, or is that?
Oh, I think in part. I mean, I think in part it's probably
The
some of the
forgetfulness.
hormonal changes in menopause or perimenopause, which can apparently just go on for eternity, number of years. But also, I think we manage a lot in our heads.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information, and more than our mother's generations when they were our age. Like, there's just more out there, and you're more accessible, and there's more to keep up with. Like, you have to check your text messages and
my
your
gosh, yeah.
emails. And
Mhm.
someone left me a voicemail the other day. Like, I forgot I still got those.
Yeah.
And, so it's like there's a lot to keep up with. You've got a lot of irons in the fire, and you guys have a career, and I have a career. And,
Yes.
I have kids, one out of college, one in college, one in middle school, one in high school.
She's
just
so
even
busy.
Keeping,
You're so busy.
I
That
mean,
stresses me
right?
out.
I feel like I'm as busy as everyone else, really.
I would
find
agree.
time to do my puzzle, I'll tell you. I really do.
I love that. But you're also fighting dementia when you do that. So it's also good.
I
for
mean, I
memory.
hope so. I'm doing everything I can.
Yeah.
I'm drinking a lot of coffee, which, like, I keep reading is like a good, like, dementia preventative.
I think so.
Is it really?
I hope so. I will never forget anything if it's true because I drink a ton of coffee. But yeah, and reading too. Reading is like
It's
I have a
another
post
one.
on this. Like, and it does not have to be. You don't have to read War and Peace. Like, you don't have to go back and read Anna Karenina. Like,
Something.
something
To
fun.
stimulate your brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the adult equivalent of like Sweet Valley High, which I was totally into as a kid. Did you guys ever read those?
Yes, it's
yeah.
been a while.
Yeah, the twins, Elizabeth
Yeah.
and Jessica. Yeah.
Yes.
Go back and try to read one. Like, if you can find one somewhere, it's hilarious.
I'm going to do that.
There's
I'm gonna
like
do that.
spelling error. I mean, it's just funny, but
There's
but
spelling
read something
errors.
that's enjoyable that you can just really kind of escape into and lose yourself in. It's really good for your mental health. It increases empathy. It increases awareness. It's good for your attention. It keeps you off your phone.
I love that. I just think
Yeah.
these phones have gotten crazy. I think it's
yeah,
and
they're-
it's
not
changed the
going away.
world. No.
It's gonna get.
And it's
there's
like-
no telling what we're fixing to deal with.
But trying to
with
get
AI.
people to understand the importance of balance, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
putting a round thing in a square peg or a square thing in a round peg
Yeah.
or whatever. It's just,
Ground hole. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like, we can't get people to understand that, okay, these things, we understand phones aren't going away and
Yeah.
there's important uses for them, but you got to find a balance. You got to, when you're with your family, put it away.
Yeah.
You don't need to get all those calls in that very moment. You don't need to do all
But when
that.
you see the parents aren't doing it, the kids aren't going to do it.
Yeah,
Right. And
100%.
That's
Yeah.
where a lot of
Yeah.
it stems from.
Yeah.
I was guilty of it. I mean,
No, for sure.
when you're constantly doing stuff, that's your lifeline. It's your business sometimes. So it's like, hold on just a minute. And you got to set that example.
Yeah, I mean, I had to pull over on the way here and like get online and order my daughter's. We're having a birthday party for her tomorrow. Order her cake so I could go pick it up when I leave. But like, I had to pull out my phone. I was like, I got to pull over and do this. But we're really relying on them.
100%.
Like, God forbid I just walk into Nothing But Cakes and tell them what I want. Like, I'm gonna order it all and pay for it, so I don't have to deal with anybody. I can just go get it.
You
and
can
leave.
just pick it right up.
It'll be fast.
Convenient.
And like, I mean, I like people, but I just had a woman tell me that she's like, I've really done better not being on my phone, and I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Because I told her, I said she's pregnant right now and worried about a lot of things, as we are when we're pregnant. And I said, check in with yourself, like before you get on your phone and look at all your apps, and then after. And I'm not saying don't do it. We all need ways to kind of decompress, and she works really hard in her career. But just take a little inventory of like, do I have this weird pit in my stomach? Do I feel just kind of like, ooh, am I more negative in my outlook, or do I feel better? Do I feel more positive? Do I feel more hopeful about the state of the world? And like, it's probably going to be the prior, not the latter. So, and she did say, like, I started doing that, which is so lovely, because I have so many of these like women I just love to take care of who'll come in and go, you know how you told me like to not drink the wine and to not text this person and to not spiral about this? And I'll go, well, I didn't do any of that. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I totally get it. Let's kind of deal with the fallout of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she was like, I actually did that, and it was super helpful. So I think you're right. We're not going to get rid of them. And I think even for adolescents, look, we like to stay in contact with our peers too. Mm-hmm. We were on the phone. I remember when I got my own line and call waiting, and we would use speakerphone, on the like rotary phone to talk to people. We like to stay connected to our peers too. That is what they're doing.
Right.
100%.
And some of that is
easier.
normal,
Yeah.
right? But it looks worse
Yeah.
because they're like this scrolling, and it's harder to have a boundary on it because we had to be like at home or somewhere in order. But what they're doing is really connecting with their peers, and developmentally that is very normal.
But I think the danger there is by doing that, they're also exposed to the World Wide Web and the internet and all these things that aren't developmentally appropriate. Then they have, and then they're communicating.
Yeah.
They're communicating on Snapchat,
But I think
versus
that
a
goes to
phone line.
regulations, too. I think
So
there needs to
They
be better
do
regulations.
communicate on Snapchat
that's like,
exclusively.
yes.
Yeah.
My
Well,
girls
it's because
will
it
say,
disappears, right?
probably in part, yeah, but my girls just say, oh no, we just have a group chat. That's how people make plans. Mm-hmm. The only people they text are like me and their, grandparents and father and the women they babysit for.
And they're not going to talk to you on the phone.
No.
Oh no, they will FaceTime.
They will FaceTime.
I get FaceTime almost every night from my baby.
Yeah.
Every night. And I love that.
Me too. It's
but
great.
They are not going to pick up the phone if you call.
No.
They're going to, you almost have to text them 911 for them to pick up the phone and call you.
Or you got to find a way to find them on Snapchat.
I don't do Snapchat.
It's kind of like when they get handed cash after they babysat and they act like it's like a bomb that's going to detonate in there. They're like, I don't know what to do with this, Mom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, calm down. It's cash. Just, like, can you take it and Venmo me?
Can you take it and Venmo
Sure,
me?
I will take it and Venmo you. That's like what they do when their phone rings. Like, what do I do? I don't know. Answer it. You know how to talk to people. Like, you were not raised in a barn. Like, pick up the phone. Yeah, it's so crazy to me. But you're right. And what drives me crazy the most, even though like some phone usage I get, it's kind of like what we did as kids. It just looks different. What drives me crazy is when I walk in and see I have 2 adolescent children still live at home, when they have friends over and they're all sitting there on their phones and not talking to each other.
Drives me crazy.
Yeah. I don't say anything.
But I will say, though, I'm guilty for that sometimes, too.
Oh, same.
Well, I think it's for more entertainment purposes. Let's say you're in a big group of people and you got someone that said something completely obnoxious. I'm texting my daughter going, OMG, like, did you hear that? And then you're giggling at yourself, right? It becomes kind of a funny, but you're right. They do that.
Yeah, they're
do it. Right next to each other.
Yep.
They're not talking about each other.
They're not interacting. They're not. Yeah, it's so funny.
My son went to camp a couple of summers, but my daughters all went to camp for 4 weeks in the summer for 8 summers in a row. And they don't have their phones. They don't have
that's the best.
It is the best.
It
and
is the
their
best.
friendships at camp are so meaningful.
Solid.
And yes, and so they are so connected with their camp friends and really like rely on those relationships a lot during the year and like after they're done going to camp.
And they look forward to it to the
adults.
next year.
Yeah, and I think it's because they don't have their phones, so they're engaging with each other.
They have pen pals.
Yeah,
remember back in the day, you had your pen pal.
Yes.
You wrote letters and stuff. That's how you communicated.
100%.
But in that month that they spend together, I think it's so much quality time because there's no phone.
Yeah.
They're making eye contact. They're talking about stuff. Like, they're getting bored. They're having to come up with stuff to do on a rainy day or during rest hour. Like, it's so good for them to have that time away
Adults
from
need
it.
that, too.
And
I know.
inspires creativity. It really does.
That whole concept of adult camp is kind of starting to emerge. I see it
We
places.
should start one and do
Totally.
one
As
of the
long as it's
classes
not
be
like a
couple
nudist
puzzle
colony
class.
or something,
No,
right?
definitely not.
Well, you can have different breakout sessions. We'll have a puzzle class. You can
Yeah.
have a nude class.
I really
How to
think
make a good
people look better
martini.
with clothes on. I
Yeah.
really
Oh,
think
yeah. I do
clothes
too.
are
And
very
I-
valuable.
Every time I've gone to some like hotel or beach that has a clothing optional option,
I'm out.
well, same. But it's the people who choose not to wear them who probably should.
Yes, 100%.
Yes. I'm traumatized by some of the stuff I've seen.
Same.
I'm like,
People
come
look
on now.
so good in clothes. I mean,
So good.
yeah, it's just that they just really
Love
compliment. Yeah.
clothes. Yeah.
I love both, but I'm not going to show my goods to anybody.
No.
I appreciate myself a little. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you don't appreciate yourself when you do it, but I just think some things need to
Well,
be.
not out in the Publix.
Yes.
No, exactly.
No. That's not a good look. But what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I love the idea of a summer camp. I mean, I'm not going to be in charge of the sports side of things, but I do think it's good to like get away and connect with other people and not be on your technology and do things like I was saying, like go back to what you like to do in childhood. Whether it's you take a painting class or a cooking class or you go on a hike or do a yoga class,
Yep.
like something
Those
that you
all sound
do
fun.
just because you
They
enjoy
do.
doing it.
Okay.
It doesn't get you to the next point. There's no like monetary gain. It's just because you really enjoy doing it. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be 20 minutes a day.
You know, I think we started on women's issues and just women, in general, but I think we've kind of covered some different topics, but at the same time, I think it's all valuable.
Oh, it is.
100%. It's
talk
all
about so many
valuable
things that
and
everybody can
being
relate to, for sure.
healthier as adult women,
For sure.
right? And just really
Yeah.
embracing life's
Yeah.
changes. I think it's so important to embrace each stage of life. It's
Yeah,
like people
for
say, well, what
sure.
part of your kid's life did you like the best? I said, I loved every stage.
For different reasons.
Yep.
But I can say that about my own life. I've loved every
Yeah,
stage of life.
yeah.
And so just finding the positives in each stage that we're in, because there are so many valuable
For sure.
advantages.
And also, I can't like leave without saying you have to advocate for yourself. So just because your labs look completely normal, and I'm not a physician, but even if your labs look completely normal, you may still feel off. So keep asking for answers and see if there's something else you can do in terms of like managing your hormones. Starting in your 40s when you start.
Yeah, and I really want to have you back because I think that's such an important
Yes.
topic, as I feel like this topic is not talked about enough, and so many women are silently suffering. I did it
sure.
for many years myself, and I'm just saying, since getting that corrected, my whole world has opened up. And so I feel like that's something we really need to do more conversations
her back.
about. 100%, because this was
And you
too short.
deserve to feel good. You do
Yeah.
not have to feel bad. And it's so easy to get written off as women of like, well, you're probably anxious. Like, I'm going to give you an SSRI or
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want
prescription for
Let's figure
Xanax,
out what's
like-
causing this.
right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, no, I am anxious, but what's the root of it?
Yeah.
Like, is
Yeah.
it hormonal? Is it something
Yes.
else? Is it my cortisol level? But yes, advocate for yourself. You deserve to feel good.
Okay, she's going to be back on the show.
Oh, the this and that, I think we already did, because the this or that could have been close or no close.
Okay.
But I think we covered it.
This or that, close or no close. I'm going close.
Or
Close.
puzzle or no puzzle.
100%. Puzzle or no puzzle.
I'm gonna go
Puzzle.
puzzle. I mean, I even had like this really cute square table made, and I have like a puzzle board on it, so
Oh,
I
yeah.
can remove it.
See.
Should we want to play Rummy Cube?
Yeah.
I bet
Remove it, but it's up there,
puzzle.
and I even have like a light, and I wear my
Love it.
readers. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
I
she's
used to do
got
that
a
all the
light on
time.
your
I
forehead.
have- oh no, I would love to have a headlamp, but I live with a 16-year-old, 14-year-old who would be like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
would be canceled. So I just have like a swing arm lamp right now, but.
I'm going to take this or
But if
that to
I'm
a whole new
needle pointing,
thing.
I do get out the headlamp. Yeah.
Puzzle with clothes on.
Puzzle with clothes on.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Perfect. Well, we'll have her back. We'll have
Yes.
Jeff back.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much for listening.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for having me, guys. This
Thank
was really
you.
fun.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to talk to someone you trust. Get connected to a mental health professional who can help you find ways to cope and ultimately feel better. If you are having suicidal or self-harm thoughts or thoughts of hurting another person, please go to the nearest ER, call 911, or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Perk. We hope our talk today highlighted real people working through real issues based on mental health. Our goal at Mental Perk is to make sure every one of you knows you're worthy. We're in this together.